Remember phys ed and PE? It's time to go old school, stretching and spelling. Hey everybody, it's a big week on the journey to the Walt Disney World Marathon weekend, a milestone week for all of us. This week marks the 6-month point since I broke my foot during the Star Wars race weekend, during that 10K. 6 months is a really important time factor because that means I'm at less of a risk of refracture, although that's always a possibility when you break a bone because you're dealing with the body's replacement parts. This is also an important week because for the first time in a long time, remember what I said last time about the sun rising and there not being pain, that it wouldn't hurt? Well, that happened. After that last duration run, I woke up on Sunday morning and it didn't hurt. So I'm feeling good about my progress on this journey toward Marathon weekend. It's a milestone week for all of us because we're at the halfway point. T-minus 15 weeks and counting at the beginning of this training week. There will be 14 weeks left at the end of this. You will have completed 14 weeks of training. If you are following the RunDisney training plan, you've got two 30 to 45 minute training runs. You've got a 5-mile walk as part of the challenge for either goofy or dopey, and then a 15-mile distance run. For those of you who have never run more than a half marathon, this is a big week because the train is out of the station. You are going down the tracks toward 26.2 miles. Now, something else to keep in mind as this week progresses, some of you will see this before we hit a deadline of October 8th. That is the deadline to get in your proof of time for corral placement, that POT. Now, for many years, I've always put in a POT because I wanted to be somewhere in about the middle or the front of the pack so I could run my video pace. I like having fun at the Walt Disney World Marathon weekend and half marathon weekends. This is about running these races and stopping for character meet and greets and stopping at the mile markers. And because I don't see the race like the rest of you, it's a complete blur till I get home and magnify my video up on the screen. So I've always put in that proof of time, but because of my bucket year list for my big birthday of running all of the RunDisney races around the world, I didn't have a chance to run another race. I got sick. Lactic acid buildup in my liver, and then I got the flu, and I got bronchitis, and then I broke my foot, so I didn't do a local race, and all of my POTs evaporated. So if you do have a POT, if you were out there and were able to run a half marathon distance at least, and that's what you need for the marathon for goofy or dopey, if you think you can finish the marathon in 5.5 hours or the half in 2 hours and 45 minutes or less, then you have to enter a POT to get a placement that's not toward the end of the pack. That's not back there where the balloon ladies could catch you, tag you, and say you're out. Now, I'm gonna have to risk that this time around, but that's okay. That means it's a new challenge and something different to look forward to. Now, how many of you are really sick and tired of seeing me run and walk in these videos? Come on, admit it, I've seen the numbers drop off. Actually, how many of you are sick and tired of running and walking right now? You've got a long way to go. As a way to keep this different as we move ahead in the coming weeks and months, I'm going to do some different stuff from time to time. And this week, I'm going to focus on some pre and post workout habits that are meant to keep me healthy, keep you healthy, and maybe help me with this injured foot. Now where do we go from here? Tell me. This time around, we're talking about stretching and how important it is to warm up before you go out there and do a training run. If you simply go to the RunDisney training that you're following and you go up to the top to the instructions, to that information, Jeff Galloway puts it right in there. He says, make sure you go out and do a half-mile walk prior to training. Make sure you warm up. You've been sleeping all night, most likely. You're getting up early and your muscles are stiff and tired. You want to wake them up. You want to warm them up so that you don't actually cause injury. This stretching routine that I have developed over the past 4 years works for me. You may do something different. This has worked for me, and I'm going to add it back in now that my foot is starting to feel better. For the beginning of the training that we've been doing here, I've actually focused on a 1 mile or 10-minute walk as a warm-up because I couldn't put a lot of stress or weight on my foot. Now I can do the stretching again, so that's what I'm going to do before I start my walk.
Where do we go? Where do we go from here?
I kick things off by taking a knee. This is simply a groin stretch. It allows you to put some focus on the core. This tends to be a weak area for me, so it's where I put a lot of the focus. Now remember, you have two sides, so you've got to switch legs from time to time, so just bend the other knee and lean back just a little bit. I hold each one of these stretches for about 20 seconds. From there, I move into a hamstring stretch. This is a wide leg hamstring stretch, and you can do a hamstring stretch several ways. I like to do the wide leg stance with my arms folded slightly because I feel it puts a little bit of an extra pull on those hamstrings. And I can move into another of the groin stretches, which is kind of a hero pose. Now it's time for a bit of yoga as I head into a calf stretch, which is also a yoga pose. The first thing I do is a plank. The core is probably one of the most important and most underappreciated areas of the body when it comes to running. You use your core for almost everything you do while you're running. The core includes all of those muscles in your upper thigh, all of the muscles in your abdomen, all of the muscles around your glute and your groin. So I start with a plank because this makes you focus all of the attention on those muscles to keep your body in that position. From the plank, I move into a downward dog. This is a basic yoga pose. Butt in the air, heels to the ground, stretches the back of your calf. It's also a chance to bring out Coach Spanky and assistant coach Darla, because Frenchies and French Bulldogs are known for doing doga. That's yoga for dogs. And Frenchies have got this one down. Look at Spank, he comes right out and does a downward dog. Darla's still working on her technique, but we'll get her there at some point.
Thank you for the kisses. Hey, Spank. Hi. No. Hi.
After I finish my calf muscles, I go right into another plank for another minute. By the time we're done this whole marathon training, I will have increased this to 4 or 5 minutes. And then I do Cobra to stretch out those core muscles, and maybe a little child's pose to finish things up. So have you ever seen one of these things? This is called a dead cat. I think in this case it's a dead kitten for the Rode Video Micro. I forgot to put this on when I was doing all of that stretching, which means all of the natural sound didn't work because the wind was blowing on it. It's always something with me. Meow. Time to wrap things up with a little standing stretch for the quads, for the quadriceps. Grab your ankle, your foot, and you bring that up toward your butt. You point your knee down and you put your knees together. This will stretch out that upper thigh. I then like to grab my knee and put it up toward my chest to stretch out my glute and my hip. Wrap everything up with a toe point. Rotating your toe out and in. This helps to stretch out the ankle before you head out on that long training session.
Now where do we go from here? Tell me, where do we go from here? Show me.
To make sure I can make it through the next several months along with the rest of you, I'm not doing those maintenance runs at the beginning of the week. Instead, we're doing low impact. The trainer wants me to do 2 1-hour sessions on the elliptical, on the Max Trainer, but I'm tired of showing you the same video there too. So I pulled out the DJI Osmo Pocket and I did a hyperlapse. First training session, 1 hour and 10 minutes, and I brought it. Heart rate zone 3 and 4 the entire time. Second session, 1 hour and a half. And afterwards, I got a little help from Coach Spanky and assistant coach Darla doing some stretching. And that brings up the whole topic of post-training habits, things to keep you healthy after you put in the workout. My doctor suggested early on RICE, rest, ice, compression, and elevation. And it works. I've done it for the past 6 months. I am constantly going to the freezer and pulling out that ice pack because it helps to alleviate some of the pain and the swelling. In addition, I bought a foot spa off of Amazon, and this one has all kinds of great stuff going on with massaging balls and wheels and bubbles and hot water, and along with a little Epsom salt. It also helps to reduce the soreness and the inflammation. You can even use Epsom salt in a hot bath if you get achy after one of these long training runs. I'm also relying on a lot of suggestions from friends. One of them is also chronicling her journey to Marathon Weekend. She lives in New York City. Her name's Laura Fry, and she is Laura Runs and Eats. She's an amazing actress and a yoga instructor, and she gave me a great tip, a restorative pose. She said, go sit against the wall with your legs up in the air, that L shape, for 15 minutes. Seems like a long time, but it's a lot of time to think and rest and bring the swelling down in your legs and feet. And finally, my coach, Karen Blankenship, a sometime athlete, told me to spell the alphabet. Go back to the beginning, go back to elementary school. But she wanted me to spell it with my feet. Do your ABCs. Time for a bit of spelling with our toes.
Show me, show me.
A. And this has helped to strengthen and stretch out this foot, which tends to be really sore while I'm out there doing the training sessions. While I'm out there running, it takes a long time to work out the stiffness and soreness. But by simply spelling just prior to going out and doing the run, it's become much easier. N-O. Time for the final run of the week, 2+ hours.
Now where do we go from here? Tell me, where do we go from here? Show me, show me. All I need is directions, 'cause I'm feeling the pressure. Where do we go from here?
Hey, that was a really good run for me. Time for some post-training stats. 2 hours, 26 minutes, 13-minute pace, and an embedded 10K at a 12-minute pace. I'm trying to muster up the motivation to do a real 10K toward the end of the month, so maybe I can hit the deadline for the Princess Half Marathon weekend that's coming up on November 19th. The best part of this, my foot was comfortable the entire time. It did require a little of that post-training care afterward for pain and swelling, but I'll take it. It's progress. I'm moving forward and I'm catching up to the rest of you. Coming up next time to meet the real coach, a sometime athlete. Keep training and I will see you at the start line.